Hello, everyone. Welcome to Titan Alumni Talks, a weekly podcast where we talk to alumni about their experiences at Cal State Fullerton. For this week's episode, we have Bill Cole, who is the Assistant Vice President of the Office of Alumni Engagement. We're going to talk to him about his experiences at Cal State Fullerton, along with advice he has to give to students, and also we're going to touch on why he thinks it's important for alumni to give back. Thank you, Bill, for joining us today. I know it's a bit difficult not being on campus in the usual studio and then we have to do things from home, but we appreciate you taking the time to come here.
Thank you, Ahad, for having me. I know we tried to do this before we went into remote working, but I'm glad that we're able to do it today. And we're finding a new normal in life now.
Mm-hmm. So to start off, tell me what you do at Cal State Fullerton. You work at the alumni office.
Yeah, I started in mid-November as the Associate Vice President for Alumni Relations. And what I do there is I lead the alumni relations effort for the campus to engage the almost 300,000 alumni from Cal State Fullerton with the campus and with each other, both regionally, through programs and activities, professional, social, those types of activities as well. I lead a great group of staff. There's 7 staff members that are tasked with doing all these things, and we also employ about 8 or 9 students as well to help us with that task. And it's very important to keep alumni connected back to the campus. Many of us have a great experience here at Cal State Fullerton, and we don't know how to share that back or give back to that, and the alumni office is a great first step for that.
So because you work at the alumni office, why do you feel it is important for alumni to stay connected to their school after they graduate?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm in the business, it's my job, and so I have certain opinions in that, but also personally why it's important for me, because the experience as a student at Cal State Fullerton was very important for me. I was the first in my family to go to college, and so that I had no real preparation for that, and so I had to learn that at Cal State Fullerton, and it was important for me, and I want to stay connected, and I have stayed connected to the extent that I could regionally before I got the job here. But as the professional, one of the reasons why it's important is that higher education today is how we are changing social mobility in this country. Many of our students at Cal State Fullerton are first in their family to go to college, like I was, like many that I run into all the time. It changes fundamentally families on that as well. And the only way to continue that is to provide those opportunities is through the contact with others. Part of that is philanthropy, giving back. And I don't mean just dollars, but I mean giving back in time and talent, dollars as well, to provide mentorships, to provide opportunities, to provide internships. For that matter as well, so that we can fundamentally change how things are working in California and beyond, for that matter as well. The other aspect, I think, is to provide that opportunity to new students coming in. Where college may not be something in that they even thought that they could do as they're going through school, and providing the opportunities, but also the awareness that college is an option for students that are coming in. That's where alumni can make a big impact. The other thing too, I think where alumni, why it's important to stay involved, is that as a current student, and I went through this as well when I was a student, it's a big transition, and if you're not prepared, and frankly, I wasn't prepared to go to college mentally, maybe, and there was a point where I didn't think I was going to finish. I was gonna take a break and come back and do it later. And if I'd done that, I never would have finished my degree. And alumni can make a big difference on that as well by mentoring our students, our current students, providing opportunities for our current students through internships, or maybe just hiring them afterwards. I got my first job out of college because of a contact I had with a classmate of mine who had an internship in an office there as well. And then finally is just being an advocate for higher education and for the campus. And that can take on many roles, literally advocating with lawmakers and decision makers, but also just advocating for continued higher access to higher education and staying connected that way too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really great that you got help from other alumni and you find the benefit of alumni staying connected because of the benefits that they can give to other students. So a part I wanted to touch on was you got your bachelor's in political science and you started school in 1990 and graduated in 96. So
I actually graduated in 1990.
in
I
1990, you
came
started
in 1984, yeah.
1912, sorry about that. So since you started in 84 and you graduated in 1990, taking 6 years to finish college, how was that experience of you taking more time than, say, the recommended amount, where right now we have that idea of you should finish in take 15 units and you can finish in 4 years.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's important to finish your degree, first of all. I mean, it did take me 6 years for a number of reasons. I alluded to it earlier. I wasn't necessarily prepared emotionally or mentally to go to college. I had left home to go to college, and so I was on my own, and no one was making me go to school, and no one was checking to see if I was in class, and no one was seeing if I was finishing my homework, and I was not a very good student in my first year at Cal State Fullerton, which required me to unfortunately retake a couple of those classes. The other factor on it was that I had to work full time when I was in college, and I don't regret that a bit. That was just the way it was, and frankly, I learned a lot about myself, and I met a lot of people, and I got some skills that I may not have gotten if I had had to work full time as well. And that story is not unique to Cal State Fullerton. That's a story that many of not only my classmates, but also current students have as well. They have to work. When they go to class, they leave and they go to their jobs. They work sometimes into the evenings like I did, and then do their studies at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's the story that is not atypical of ours as well. But I do, to the extent that it's possible, I think it is important to finish as quickly as is reasonable, because I think they also want to have the college experience as well. So having that opportunity to participate in student organizations or other clubs and activities or other things is highly important. And building your own network now as a student that you're going to have. And I don't mean just professional, I mean just personal network as well. Is important. And so taking those classes, I mean, taking enough to graduate in 4 is important, but there's no shame in taking longer. There are some majors that just require it to be longer because of an internship that may be required or something else as well. But the bottom line is to finish your degree. And the other factor of finishing in 4 is cheaper. For me, there would have been 2 years less tuition I would have had to pay if I could have gotten it done in 4 years as well. So it is cheaper in the end as well.
Mm-hmm. I see both sides of the argument where people think that it is best to take your time and be patient with everything, but it's also reasonable to try and finish as quick as possible so you can experience everything in a reasonable amount of time and actually save that money too. So
I think the other thing, Ahad, with that too is that with college, we go in with a mindset. Some of us come in with the mindset of what we want to study. It might be biology. We're hoping to go into medical, to medicine. It might be psychology. We're going into that kind of field there as well. You go into your first year and you're like, whoa, I do not like biology at all. Or I do not like this. But you know what I do like is the creative writing class that I had, or the marketing class that I had. And you end up changing your major maybe in your first, second, or even third year. That will extend it as well. And that is not a problem either. That's what college is for, to figure out what it is that we do like, what does stimulate us, and what our passions are that we can actually make a difference in, or that we want to pursue after that as well. And so that can, I should say, extend your education progress, but that's okay. That's what it's for. I've always said, as an undergraduate, study whatever it is that you like, that gives you passion, because and for your graduate degree or your master's, if you decide to go that way, that's where you go for, the professional training in your job. That's what I've always said anyway.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any of those thoughts when you were majoring in political science where you liked the class better than that and you wanted to change your major?
It occurred to me, I had gone, chosen political science because I was active in politics, or even when I was in high school, but it always interested me. And I had a plan to go to law school. That was what I thought when I was entering college. When I was a senior in high school, that summer going into college, I was going to go to law school. Obviously, that never happened. I did not go to law school. But that's okay. I figured that out along the way. But yeah, there were times, some of the classes I had in terms of public relations classes in the communication school that I thought were really good. I thought, well, maybe that's the direction I ought to go rather than sticking with political science. And then I had a couple of, one in particular, outstanding history professors that just stirred a passion in me in a class that I had, that I ended up adding a history minor, and gave real strong consideration to getting my master's in history and going into teaching at that point as well.
Mm-hmm. And when finding a minor, how do you decide that if you want to take a minor versus double majoring in something, or just like pursuing it as a side project? Because many people, in your case, they might have just majored in history as well. Or maybe they would have done like side research on history, so they're well educated on it, but don't have an official degree in it.
For me, it was fairly easy. I had, by the time I figured that out, I knew that my trajectory wasn't 4 years anymore, that I was going to go longer. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to double major, because that might extend me even longer. For me, it was easy. However, if I had done it earlier, I may have double major or actually changed as well. And so timing for me was how I decided to add a minor rather than do a double major. For that, and because I didn't think that that it would matter to me much in where I was going by adding a double major or a minor in terms of my professional field. I just wanted to study what I enjoyed, and doing a minor gave me the opportunity to take basically mostly the classes I wanted to in history, rather than other required history courses that I may have had to have taken to fulfill that major. And so this just gave me the opportunity to be involved in the things I liked, and learn from who I think is one of the true experts in Civil War history field, and that's Dr. Ronald Whitefeld.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. And then you mentioned that you worked in college. Where did you work at?
Pardon me?
Where did you work at during college?
Oh, I had a lot of jobs when I was in college. My first semester, I worked at an AM/PM mini market as a cashier. I worked the graveyard shift there. I was working at the same time this is my first semester. I'm trying to remember, because there's a lot of jobs I had when I was in college. I worked as a clerk at the AM/PM mini mark. I was a groundskeeper for a school district for a while as well. I worked at one of the best jobs I ever had in my life, In-N-Out Burger, right there by campus as well. Still one of the best jobs I ever had. I had more fun there than I did maybe in any job I had. And by the way, I still go back and eat the food, so that's how important the food prep was to us as well. I worked in a couple of campaigns, political campaigns, as both paid and as a volunteer. I worked as an assistant to a financial planner when I was in college. I worked at an airline as a clerk in the dispatch office at an airline called AirCal Airlines. It doesn't exist anymore. It was bought out by American back in the mid '80s. Let's see. I worked as a vendor I had a vending route where we stocked vending machines throughout Southern California. My area is kind of over in in Orange County, LA County area over there. That was a job that required a lot of hours working, and so I ended up going to school at night during that time. I held that one. Those are just some of the ones off the top of my head that I can remember. But I worked at a lot of different places, doing what I had to do to put food on my own table, but also to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like it built a lot of work ethic, having to find different jobs constantly and just working where you wanted to work and just finding a place that you loved. And also keeping up with school and dealing with all of that and taking a minor as well.
Yeah, it was interesting, but at the time you're just doing what you have to do. You're not thinking of how difficult it is. In some cases, it's finding a job that makes sense for you, that provides the opportunities that for you or the flexibility, I should say, to do the things that you want to do. And part of that's going to school, obviously. And some jobs don't. And so that's why I would leave some and go to others, because it just wasn't conducive to me going to the vending job. Just wasn't, because I worked in the middle of the day and I could only go to school at night, and we started at 5:30 in the morning. And so it was really difficult. In that, it was about a year I worked there. It was really difficult to do that. On my schedule, and my studies suffered for it as well. But finding the right mix for you as well. That was my shotgun approach of how to do it. I didn't really have a mentor to guide me on that. What I would suggest, though, to a student who has to work, who has to have a job and go to school. By the way, I think everyone in college should have a job of some kind. Whether or not you have to or not, you should have an outside job, because it teaches a little bit of self-discipline, that you're relying on someone and someone's relying on you as well. But the advice I would give is, to the extent it's possible, because it's not always possible, is to find something in the field that you're interested in working in later on, or maybe going to get a master's degree later on in. To the extent, and find a mentor that might be able to assist in that. So if you're in business and you're interested in finance, working like I did for a financial planner might be a great, as an assistant, might be a great way, because then you get to see what's in there, and you also get paid for it as well. It may be an internship, but it may not be. If you're an engineer, the same thing. As a social science major, looking to go into law school, I tried to look for jobs in law firms, but they didn't really want, and I didn't know how to do it, and they didn't really want what I had. Basically, which would have been just purely admin type skills, because I couldn't be a law clerk. I didn't have that kind of training or anything else like that. But the idea of finding someone that in a job that might give you some experience later on, I think is very important, if you can do it, if it makes sense. And if not, putting bread on the table, there's no shame in that. And also, those are networks that you can rely on as well. Everyone that you encounter can be part of your network. It doesn't matter if they're in your field or not. There are many people that I still am connected with, who aren't in the field and who may not even be able to assist me, but in my career, but have given me advice, but also have pointed things out for me as well, opportunities that come along the way.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned that you worked for some political campaigns and it was unpaid, but even though you weren't getting paid for your time, you still got that experience out of it. So, and it still builds that work ethic in college, where you're not having to only work at school, but also work at a different place. And like you said, that's
and a great friend of mine, who I'm still in contact with as well, helped in that manner as well. I did some other work without him during the presidential campaign of 1988 in Orange County. A couple of different campaigns that I volunteered on. There was one that they actually paid me to go canvass door to door, and during that campaign as well. That was an interesting experience. knocking on people's doors. Back then, people were more likely to open the door. They're more likely to be home too when you came, but they were more likely to open the door. And it was an interesting experience for that. But it also helped build a couple of connections that I used later on in 1990 when I graduated and got my first job out of college in a political campaign as well, paid job.
And then you mentioned that you got your master's degree. Where was that at?
No, I did not get my master's. I intended to all these years, and so as a piece of advice for students, I would say, if you intend to get your master's, don't take that break like I did. I was 6 years of college. I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break. I'll go back and get that master's later on. Life gets in the way suddenly at that point. You may get married or start a family. A job may take you a different place that you're going, and you may never get back to it because it's really hard to go back. And for those that do so, I have nothing but admiration for that. But if you're thinking about a master's, just go right into it if it's possible. For me, anyway, it was hard to get back once life got in the way.
And you mentioned the same thing with taking the 6 years of school. It's better to stay in school than take that break, or you might not come back afterwards.
For me, it certainly was. I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have completed it, and I think I would have. Unfortunately, been one of those statistics that got 2 or 3 years of college and then didn't finish their degree for that as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. For many people, that's just the way life is. But I was lucky enough to and fortunate enough to have good people around me to encourage to finish that degree as well.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the things that you did on campus. You were part of the Golden Key National Honor Society.
Yeah,
and also the Poli-Sci Student Association, right?
Yeah, the Golden Key was easy because if you had a grade point average high enough, you're automatically part of that. So I didn't do a lot with them as well. But the Political Science Student Association, I did attend those meetings and enjoyed my time there as well. I didn't know anyone in California when I came here, and I didn't know anyone in Orange County. And so I was very reluctant to be involved in student organizations my first year or two because I literally didn't know anyone. And so I kind of felt as an outsider. And everyone else seemed to know someone, and it all, like, they knew what was going on and everything else. After a while, you figure out no one knows anyone, no one knows what's going on, and you're just worried about what you look like. And so that's why I started getting involved with the Political Science Student Association. That was fun because that literally was was student run. We got to decide what we wanted to do, and so we, on various years, we would bring in people we wanted to hear from, and it would be like an afternoon. We would bring in a campaign staffer from, a staffer from one of the legislators to come in just to talk to us. And they weren't very old. They were in their 20s as well, and they're telling us what it's like to work in a legislative office. These are field directors or someone that's coming back from their Sacramento office as well. And we tried to get ideas from all sides, because within the organization, all political affiliations were represented on that. Not just the Democrats, the Libertarians, and Republicans, but we had anarchists who said themselves they are anarchists as part of that group as well. And so getting a wide variety of diverse thought was very, very interesting for me. I grew up in South Dakota. And so, the whole state only has like 750,000 people, and there's more than that in Orange County, obviously. And so it was a shock for me to be there, but it was very important to have that diversity of thought that you didn't get much of in South Dakota. There may be some anarchists in South Dakota, but I never came across them. So having that opportunity to have a diversity of thought actually helps reinforce and also guide how you develop your own thoughts and opinions as well. If you're only exposed to one school of thought, is your opinion actually really that solid? If you haven't compared it or challenged it within yourself or been challenged by someone else, then how strong of an opinion can it be, or how um, valid can you be as someone espousing that opinion if you haven't been exposed or challenged on that, or being able to challenge somebody else as well. And that's what the Political Science Student Association did. There was no faculty member or anybody else. It was just us in there. And it was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Sometimes we met in the pub down in the student union when we didn't have a speaker, but otherwise it was good. Unfortunately, I don't maintain many of those contacts anymore. Life got in the way, but those are fond memories for me, though. Thank you for bringing that up.
And how do you think the political climate has changed from around 30 years ago to now? Were there still like people campaigning for specific politicians? Because right now we'll see the tents up every like Tuesday or Thursday of people campaigning for certain politicians. Was that the same thing happening 30 years ago?
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, I want to say yeah. It is. It is a little different today. It seems a little bit more polarized today. But I think someone who had gone to school in the '60s, I did not. I wouldn't speak for them, but they might say the same thing. It was pretty polarized during that time as well. And then also during the '70s and in the '80s, it was a little bit different. There was a little. At least from my perspective as a young person, looking back on it gives you a different perspective. But there were a lot of clubs and organizations that would table on Wednesdays, and I used to avoid the Titan Walk when I was first. A couple of years because again I didn't know anyone and I didn't know what I was supposed to do and I felt like everybody else was involved in doing all this and I had to go to work and everything else and they didn't have to, but as it turns out you realize that we're all in the same boat as well. But yeah, I think it is similar. The issues unfortunately aren't that much different. I think there's still the issue of racial inequality. You think we'd like to we've come a long ways, but I think in many ways we haven't. We have made some progress. There's a lot more progress to make with that in terms of social injustice as well. But the parties seem to be pretty polarized today. Even within the parties, there's in the major parties, that is, in California, there's that dichotomy within the actual party itself. And I know the Democrats like to think that they're not as I shouldn't say that it's tougher to organize versus the Republicans. And the Republicans think the exact same thing. It's tougher to organize, and the Democrats seem to have it all together. And so I don't think
that was shown in like the 2016 election where there were 20-something Republicans running, and then now the 2020 election, there were 20-something Democrats running. Right. So it just depends on the year, but as you can see, we're all kind of the same.
Yeah, the only thing I think that why we need to keep paying attention to is for a number of reasons. Obviously, these are decision makers that are going to affect our lives with policies and laws that may come into effect, and also on actions that taken that could affect broader our region, state, national, and the world. But it's important to be informed because a lot of these decisions get made that affect us on a local level, especially with higher education, with education in general. Not so much in California, but in some parts of the country, higher education is under attack where decision makers don't see why public funding of higher education is important. We're fortunate we don't have that kind of issue, but it is important to maintain our presence in front of decision makers, because if we're not there, somebody else is making the case to them why to spend the resources that are available on their program or in their field. And so we constantly have to be in front of our decision makers and to let them know the importance of higher education, what it's doing, what it's the impacts it's making to the economy, to health, to our food supply, to the transportation research and housing research, where those things are being you back up. Those we're making progress in those areas because of the folks that we've educated both at in a public situation in both the UC and the CSUs. And if we don't have that, things will get a lot worse for us as well. So we need to make those cases why it's important. I didn't articulate that very well, but it is important to maintain our presence in front of decision makers.
Mm-hmm. Also because like there are so many people out there who have the potential, but because of their current circumstances, they might not be able to afford college, or they might be working full time and not perform their best at college. So it is important to make sure that everyone does have an equal opportunity. And fortunately, Cal State Fullerton, it is not as expensive compared to other universities out there where they're charging $20,000, $30,000 a year for students to get an education that is similar to the one at Cal State Fullerton.
I think that what you'll find in California at the CSUs is that it's obviously for the amount of money, it's a bargain. But I don't want those that are unfamiliar to think that, well, it's not as expensive as a UC or other college, so therefore it must not be as good. That is not the case. I think, especially at Cal State Fullerton, we are educating our students at a very high level, and they're going into their professions starting at a very high level. They don't have to ramp up as much as well. This is an education that you could get someplace else and pay a lot more for. But I would hold up our students to any university within the state, within the country for that matter as well, the quality of our students and the quality of the education that they're receiving.
Mm-hmm. And I can attest to that since I've started to take some online courses from other universities, and not to discredit them, but I don't see them to be more difficult considering what they normally charge for their actual tuition in class, whereas online they're much cheaper and they're sometimes even free. Like you can find courses on Coursera, EDX from these top tier universities, and you don't find them to be much more difficult than education here at Cal State Fullerton. It's basically the same thing, but then you realize that the price, the dollar per knowledge point you're getting here is much higher than what you're getting at other universities.
And I don't think the quality of these students at those others is any better than the quality of student that you're going to find here at Cal State Fullerton, and in some cases we're much better, obviously much more diverse in many cases than some of these other schools, and diverse in its broadest sense as well. I was talking about diversity of thought before as well, because that is just as important, but also being exposed to other cultures and other socioeconomic classes of people as well, because that will also affect how we move through life as well. So and also these are some of the best friends I had in college were folks that I didn't think we would ever come across, and it's because of that diversity of thought. Some of the folks that I did not agree with politically were some of my best friends when I was in college as well, because we challenged each other and it was fun to be around.
Yeah. And then since you mentioned that you worked from South Dakota, what is the one reason that you came to Cal State Fullerton for, where you thought, I'm going to fly across the country and come right here in California?
Yeah, the only reason I came to Cal State Fullerton, I was going to play baseball. I want to play baseball. So I picked the best baseball school in the country, I thought, at the time. The school had just won a national championship in baseball at that point. I believe it was the second at the time. And I was looking at Arizona State and Cal State Fullerton. Now, I wasn't recruited as a baseball player by Fullerton. I just wanted to play baseball in college. And so I came here thinking that I'll try to walk on and get on the baseball team. It didn't work out that way. I tried to walk on for 2 years of tryouts with the baseball team. Did not make it. The coach at the time was was a legendary coach, Augie Garrido. And for anyone that knows baseball, certainly college baseball, that name is familiar. He truly is a legend. And after my second walk-on tryout, I didn't make it. What am I, 19, 20 years old? I walk into his office after that one afternoon, and he's there. And I didn't call ahead of time, which you should have done, or email. Well, we didn't have email then, but I didn't call ahead of time to see if he could meet with me, if he would meet with me. I just walked in, and he took the meeting, and told me frankly that I'm not going to make that team, and he must have seen it on my face, or maybe he's had this conversation a number of times, but he said something to me that made a difference, and why, among other reasons why Cal State Fullerton is important to me. He looked at me and he said, but it's important for you to finish your degree. You started something, you need to finish it. And that was important because I knew the answer. I knew I wasn't going to make the team. I knew I was going in there to say maybe there was something I could do, or more work that I might be able to do that. But I kind of knew the answer in the back of my head that I wasn't going to make it. And frankly, I thought that I was going to drop out of school. I might even go back to South Dakota, because what was the point, right? What was why continue on? But him telling me that and taking that time, and because he took a lot of time with me, he took a good hour or more of his time to talk with me and encourage me. And we talked very little baseball in that meeting as well. I'll never forget that. And it made a big difference for me. And it's one of the reasons why I stayed and why I finished my degree. But South Dakota, I came for baseball, and then I discovered the winters out here were a lot nicer, so I decided to stay.
Yeah, I'm sure he had that talk with a lot of students, because I know many people who are aspiring to be in sports don't go to college for the education, but instead they go to be recruited. And once they get hit with they're not going to be on the team or going to play into the professional league like the NBA, NFL, or the MLB, then they kind of find no point in it and they kind of get torn down. But it's good that he gave you that advice to stay in, and that you did finish college afterwards.
Yeah.
Which it's difficult for a lot of people to do from that situation at that point.
Yeah, there were a number of faculty that had that kind of effect on me as well. I mentioned Dr. Ronald Reitfeld in the history department, who spurred my interest in the Civil War history, and to this day I continue to read Civil War history on my own. But that is not something I came in with as an interest at that time. But learning from him, and who was truly an expert, but also one of the most thoughtful, nicest people, who cared so much about his students. It made a big difference for me. We had a morning class one semester started at 8 o'clock. One morning early in the semester, we happened to meet each other getting coffee at the student union. That started a regular, I think it was a Tuesday, Thursday class, Tuesday, Thursday get together for he and I at 7:30 in the morning to have a cup of coffee before we went to class. And that was, and he was willing to do so. I mean, this is a faculty member who has to prepare for their 8 a.m. class, and was willing to have, out of a chance meeting, we just happened to be there, that it started for the rest of that semester, an every Tuesday and Thursday meeting for coffee as well.
Mm-hmm. So that just shows the kind of impact that faculty and anyone on campus can have on other students, as long as they're willing to put in your part and be there as well when they offer this or when they plan to meet with people.
Absolutely.
I know I have a past professor that I was a TA for, and she's really great. Her name is Dr. Paleshi, and she's just always there whenever I need to talk to someone. I just drop into her office and I just sit there, and sometimes we go out for lunch and we just talk about things, because it's just having a professor who can see all the students around from like a third person perspective can give you great advice.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting you say that you can drop into their office, and that is so important to take advantage of office hours that our faculty make available to us. I didn't do that as much, but I did do that, especially with the ones that not only challenged me, but that I learned the most from. Within the political science department, two faculty members stand out to me, Dr. Barbara Stone and Dr. Rafe Sonnenschein. I believe Dr. Stone is now retired. Dr. Sonnenschein is now at Cal State LA, unfortunately, but he's doing great things there as well. I learned more practical politics from them than from anyone else. Political science is a lot of theory, a lot of writing, and which is fine. That's the nature of it as well. But that's not why I went into it. I didn't want to study John Locke so much as I wanted to learn to run campaigns and work in campaigns, or work as a policy advisor or something like that. But then you realize that you better have a frame of reference for theory and political thought, so that you can put that into action as well. But I learned so much from them, and they were so available to me, and gave such great advice. When I say to me, they did that to anyone who took an interest in doing that as well. And that's one of the reasons I think that made and makes Cal State Fullerton an outstanding university for students, because it is student-centric. I think the faculty generally care about their students, and to the extent that they can, will do what they can to help them on in their careers.
Mm-hmm. So the faculty is always there for students, and it's also important for students to stay active and constantly look for other opportunities that are out there, because there's part of it. I've read a book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks a lot about opportunities versus physical drive. And you need to have a bit of both. Like, you need to have that opportunity, which we have at Cal State Fullerton, where we have a faculty who's always there for us, but we also need to have that physical drive to find someone out there, or maybe even find a job. Like you said, you were working at different places. They didn't just come to you. You kind of had to apply for them, or go in, or talk to someone specifically to get into that position.
And that's true. Ultimately, it's up to you. The faculty member isn't going to take their office hours to you and find you in the quad, or find you someplace to have that conversation. It really is up to you to do that, and so take advantage of it, though. Like you said, those are the opportunities that are there. It is up to us to take advantage of them, and that goes back to taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available on campus. A career center. I didn't even know there was a career center on campus when I was a student, unfortunately, and so I didn't get much help from that. But that's an outstanding resource. The Alumni Association and the alumni staff are an outstanding resource if you're looking to connect with alumni in fields that you're interested in pursuing. Maybe just trying to figure out whether or not that is your place that you want to work. Do I want to be a lawyer? Do I want to be in finance? Do I want to do this? Let me see if I can connect with someone that's in that to see if that is something I want to do. That's where we can assist. And so take advantage of those resources that are on campus. Oftentimes students who are busy like we are at Cal State Fullerton, where you go to school, where you work and you do other things, you don't always hear about those opportunities. And so that's when it becomes on us and those departments to make, to the extent it's possible, use the resources that are available to communicate those opportunities to students.
Mm-hmm. And then talking about those resources that are available, the Career Center, it helped me a lot finding my first few jobs on campus. If you look at it, like when you're a freshman, it could be a little daunting looking at everything, but once you get it figured out, you could easily see what jobs you're able to apply for, which ones are entry level, which ones don't require much experience, because I wasn't able to work in high school. No one would hire a 16-year-old still going to school full time. But then once I got to college, I felt like I needed to work to also keep myself busy and not get myself too distracted on other things that are as useful or keeping me as driven. And then, like you mentioned, the alumni are a great resource, and we have the Titan Network, which I believe you are on. And that is like a perfect way to connect to alumni, since we have, I believe, over 1,000 alumni on the platform itself. And it's just a fantastic way to find alumni who are in the fields, like you said, and you could get some advice from them, set up a call through the application itself. And in that, you just know if something is right for you. You could even ask them to mentor you, or even shadow them for a bit, just to get a feel of the area you might be working in 4 to 6 years, something like that.
I think you're absolutely right, Ahad, about taking advantage of that. That's a very passive way to do it. It's a great way to find out what's out there, to connect that way as well. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to a student, and for any alum who wants to be a part of that as well, is to do it. If you're going to do it, then do it, because you don't want to disappoint the student. You don't want to disappoint the alumna who is giving up their time to mentor as well. And so if you're going to do it, take advantage of it and do it, because you don't want to create a bad experience for each other. And don't feel bad. I mean, there's a reason why they're in this in this platform. It's not because you're reaching out cold to someone like that. So don't feel like I used to. It's like, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't, they don't know me. Everybody else seems to have it all together. I don't. That's not the case. Take advantage of it and use it. There's a reason why they put themselves in this platform, both the students and the alumni. So take advantage of it and use it.
Mm-hmm. Because I've done some cold calling before, and it does get a little daunting. You get a little nervous, just wondering what will they say to you. And then I just kind of understood that the worst they will say is no. But the next person you talk to, they don't know that you've reached out to anyone as of yet. So they just think it's a new person. And that's from cold calling. But here, everyone who's on the platform is willing to reach out,
Yeah.
or wants someone to reach out, because it's great for alumni as well, where they have people who are willing to work in maybe it's in their industry, if they're a manager or a supervisor, or if they just want to give advice, because alumni love giving back. And that's why we have so many on the platform and so many alumni who are connected to Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, I agree. And the opportunities are there. Take advantage of them. And stay connected after you graduate. If you had any experience, good or bad, working with someone helping you, if it's great, if it's a good experience or a great experience, then you know how important it is. And if it wasn't such a good experience, because you, like myself, you didn't really find that many that were there, because you didn't know about it, or you didn't take advantage of it, or it just wasn't a good experience, then change that. Then make it a good experience yourself. And you don't have to wait, till you're 5 years out or 10 years into your career, where you can make a difference with someone. You can make a difference with someone right away, because it would have made a difference to me if a 24-year-old first or second year graduate out had said, hey, you know what, you need to buckle down. I know that no one's checking to see if you show up for class in the morning, but if you don't do this, you're going to flunk out, dude. And let me tell you, there's some resources you can get to on campus that I didn't know about, like the Learning Center and those types of things that are available. That would have been helpful. So make that, you don't have to wait. You can. And those are great ways to stay involved and give back. And I think it can be very rewarding, because you get to see that experience as well. And you never know how many people that you might affect as a student as well. And it's also important, I think, to give regularly to the university in whatever area that you think. And it doesn't have to be $25,000. If you can, great, give that much. If it's $25, if it's $5 a year, it's something, because it shows your commitment to the university and what it meant to you. Excuse me. And the other thing that it does affect our rankings, because unfortunately there are ranking services out there that judge a university's affinity with its alumni by how many alumni actually give to the university. I think that's a very superficial and easy way to do it, but unfortunately some of those rankings use that as a bellwether about whether or not the alumni feel good about their university. So that also helps in our rankings, which makes your degree that much more valuable. That provides an opportunity to that person coming behind you that may not have had that opportunity before, because now there's financial aid or scholarships that are available, or resources that are available that weren't available when you were a student.
Mm-hmm. And like people say, you can't always control the situation, but you can control the outcome by what you do with that. So we're gonna go and or start talking about advice that you would give to students based on your experiences at Cal State Fullerton. I know you worked at UCR for a bit, so working at higher education, you can kind of see from a third person perspective of what works for students all around and what kind of doesn't. So we're gonna get into that right now. Since you were a student at Cal State Fullerton and then you did some work at UCR, and now you're back at Cal State Fullerton, what few pieces of advice do you think is necessary for students to get the heads up on?
Yeah, this is, I've had the opportunity working in higher education now for 18, 19 years, both at UCR and most recently now at Cal State Fullerton, my alma mater. And the student body is very similar at both universities, where a majority of the students are first in their families to go to college, like I was. My folks were very supportive of me going to college. They just didn't know how to do it. What was the application process, what financial aid things. Those things were just different, and they didn't know how to navigate them as well. And many of our students are finding that the same way. But now they're here. They figured it out somehow, and they're there. But there's a lot of pressures that are on, especially first generation students, to complete their degree, because they will be the first. They're going to be the example in their family for their siblings or for their extended family as well. And I understand those pressures. They're all unique to us, but I understand the kind of pressure that you can be under, because I felt that as well. One piece of advice is don't let it get to you, and don't suffer in silence. Reach out to your friends and take advantage of the resources that are there. Be involved in something on campus that is not in the classroom. To get involved with a student organization. There's so many different student organizations that are out there that are from social to service related, that are just fun to be a part of, that might even be professional as well, which is great. Be part of something, get to know anyone. Don't do what I did, and that is think that everybody else knows somebody. Their friends are here. They know what's going on. They got it all together. They have their path set before them. Because that's what I thought, because that's what it appeared to me, or that's what I was internalizing anyway. And it's not the case. We're all the same. We're all trying to figure it out as we go through college. And so don't be afraid to step out of that shadow, especially for those that are more introverted. That's a tough nut to crack. And so the other side of that coin is that if you're more extroverted and you see someone that may not be engaging that way in the organization, help them out. You don't have to be their best friend. You don't have to take long walks on the beach together, but you can also help them out and get them more involved, he or she more involved in that as well. And the other piece of advice that I've mentioned earlier is study what you love. Study what gives you passion. If it's physics, great, fantastic, then do it. But if it's dance, then do dance as well. Or if it's political science, then do that. Because what you study, if you're passionate about it, will teach you the skills that you need to do whatever you want to do. Beyond that, if it's teaching or another professional opportunity, then those would be the skills that you take. And if you decide to go to graduate school, then look at the graduate programs that will be best for you in your career. Like I said, study what you love as an undergraduate, and as a graduate, take what's going to be building your career at that. Those are the pieces of advice I would do, and then get involved on campus, because those that are involved on campus are also going to be involved as alumni. It makes my job a lot easier to engage alumni, because they understand what it's like, the importance of getting involved, and hopefully they'll get involved with that student organization again. If they do, that's a win for me. It's a win for that campus.
Mm-hmm. So those are great pieces of advice. And like you mentioned before, getting the diversity and just getting knowledge from people who are more diverse. So someone who's extroverted, they might think, why should I speak to someone who's more introverted? But a good portion of that is that they can learn a lot from someone who just thinks differently or acts socially different from them. And that's the great part about Cal State Fullerton. There's diversity in all different forms. It's not just income level or race or anything like that. There's, in every way you can think about it, there's diversity. So going to political science students in particular, is there any advice that you would give to them trying to get into a field, like maybe it's not an election year or no one big is running? How would someone who's graduating get into political science or get into the working field?
And if that's the case, why did they take political science in the first place as well? We all take it for different reasons. And I think the reason we all got into it could be to go to law school, or then it changes that you want to work in policy making or in politics. You want to run campaigns or whatever it might be. And that's what I wanted to do when I graduated. I wanted to run campaigns. I wanted to cut my teeth in campaign work and then become a campaign manager and a campaign consultant ultimately, because I thought they made all the money at the time, and that's where I wanted to cut that. But yeah, I think it's finding out why that you're studying this, and then where those opportunities lie, and don't wait till your last semester to start building those connections, and then building those internships or other relationships as well. It's not that it's too late, but you're behind the curve, and it'll take you a lot longer to catch up in the end. So start doing that as early as possible. And the other question then for students is, well, how do I do that? Well, that's where you can come to the Alumni Association or go to the career office or talk to your faculty member. Where are those opportunities? That's how I did it. My faculty members, Barbara Stone, Rafe Sonnenschein, are the ones who helped me make the connections. They didn't make a phone call for me. They didn't call and say, hey, this guy's worth hiring or anything else, or should be involved. They suggested areas based on how they knew and my skills were as a student that I had to follow up on. And that makes all the difference in the world. When you do it on your own, you get a lot of satisfaction of someone just handing you something as well.
Mm-hmm. And then to end it off, what is one thing you would do differently at Cal State Fullerton? Like if you were to give your advice back to Bill, like do this instead, or take this one class, or maybe join this one club, what would it be?
What would I do differently? There's a couple of different things, but I'm going to focus on one. I think the thing I would do much different is maintain the connections I had to other students at the time. I didn't do that even as a student because, again, I felt like an outsider and someone who wasn't from here. I didn't have my friends here as well, and so I didn't feel like I knew anyone. And what I would do differently is if I could talk to 18, 19, 20-year-old Bill and say, dude, nobody has it going on. No one knows what's going on. You just need to have the confidence that they appear to have and reach out and build those connections now as well. I think I would have taken a much different path. I don't regret where I'm at all, but the path I've taken to get to where I am, I think might have been easier, but also a little bit more fulfilling too, where today I could look back and make connect with those friends that I have there as well. And who knows who I may have been able to help along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Even with all this quarantine stuff going on, you still made time out of your day to come on here. And if students want to connect with you, what is the best way for them to, maybe if they're majoring in political science or anything resonated with them directly, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Ahad, thank you for doing this. And my email is the easiest thing to in order to contact me, and that's at wcole, C-O-L-E, at fullerton.edu. That's my email address at the alumni office. And obviously our phone number as well, 657-278-4733 is my direct line, and you can always use that. Even working remotely, that direct line rings on my cell phone. So feel free to use that. It's always kind of a pleasure to be able to connect with a student and make that connection. And students, if anyone happens to listen to this, alumni do want to connect with you. That gives them a lot of satisfaction, and they actually feel like they're useful for something. So take advantage of us.
This week's episode and all future episodes will be uploaded to titanradio.org at 10 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, and you can also listen to them at our YouTube channel at CSUF Alumni.